Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for Marvel's Moon Knight. Sometimes we need the cold light of death before we can see reality. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Watch Club for Marvel's Moon Knight, Episode 6, the finale, titled Gods and Monsters. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and the MCU in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, well, listen, go do that, and then come right back in a snap. Now, before we get into an epic CGI battle with a crocodile goddess, let me introduce you to the other personalities joining me today. First up, he's a Marvel nut who's taller than King Tut. He's the Egyptian jackal, Justin Lawrence.
That's our final episode, my fellow Moonies. Final episode. Yeah, our Moonies. Yeah, last time I'll get to say that. Well, maybe not the last time, but we'll see.
We'll see. Now, listen, Kevin the Crocodile Hudson isn't able to join us. He's stuck in his sarcophagus for now for this final Watch Club. But don't worry, we've summoned two excellent alternates to discuss this finale. Joining us yet again for his third time, he floats like a butterfly but stings like a bee. His name's Mike with an E. He's Mike Smith from the Dumpster Talk podcast. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, everybody. I'm happy to be back. It's pretty awesome. It was a great text to get today. Thank you.
I was like, yeah, we were scrambling, trying to figure out what we would do, and you just did so well the last two episodes that we had to have you on. I love that your shirt says Mike. Is it say Mike on or Mikey? It's because Ninja Turtles.
Mikey. Yeah,
dude, Michelangelo. You can't see that shit? Come on.
Okay.
It's a party, dude.
And joining us, I think much like a certain personality that we've all been waiting to see in this series, I'm delighted to welcome in, yet again, our resident Marvel expert. He's the dynamic, dazzling, dastardly, yet dignified dominator of the duat. He's Darcy, the dankest deity, Hudson.
Yeah, that's me.
You'd be the deity of dank in the Egyptian world?
Yeah, sure. I like that.
Your goal as a god is to just get everyone super high.
Travelers of dank.
Time. Take it easy.
Yeah.
That should be all God's jobs.
They're right.
To get people high. Yeah.
Darcy, now, obviously you've been on the podcast many a times, but, on this podcast, on this Watch Club in particular, I've asked so far every host to let us know, if you were to join our version of the Ennead, what god would you be according to the great god of BuzzFeed? So, Darcy, let me hear it. I sent you that BuzzFeed quiz. What god would you be?
I got Osiris, baby.
Yeah, join the Osiris Club. We're all about that. I think, Mike, you got Osiris as well, right?
Yeah, there's like 4. I think that's 4 altogether.
Right. I know. I think Kevin and I were Mutt, and then I think Nate, you were Osiris, right?
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
He's the coolest one anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also BuzzFeed. How much can we trust BuzzFeed? Really?
It's true.
A great point, but
they might have some alternative sort of ideas over there at the old BuzzFeed. Maybe they're the Ennead. You never know.
They kind of act like one.
I hope not.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 gods so far. We've done what, five people.
That's
have
true.
Done it.
Listen, we'll put the BuzzFeed quiz in the description of the podcast. If you want to take the quiz yourself and find out what god you are, we'd love for you to write in and let us know if you got anyone other than Mutt or Osiris. Well, listen, folks, we've done it. We escaped death yet again, and we are finally at the end. So, guys, let's just get into this episode. We have so much to go over in this finale. Even though, it didn't feel like there was a lot to the finale, we have a lot to go over. So, picking up mere moments following the events of Episode 4 in Alexander the Great's burial chamber, Arthur Harrow and his disciples surround Mark's lifeless body, retrieving Amit's Ushabti from his pockets. Paying final respect, Harrow places the golden scarab on his bullet-ridden chest and apologizes, saying, "I'm sorry it had to be this way." Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, whoever else might be in there, which is like our first moment of foreshadowing. Approaching his disciples with Amit's Ushabti in hand, Harrow readies his congregation to heal the world, as he says, as he lifts his double-headed crocodile cane with purple energy emanating from it. Examining Mark's body, Layla stifles her cries for her husband and embraces him one last time. Pocketing the golden scarab and exiting the cave, Layla hides amongst the group of Harrow's disciples. At a heavily guarded police checkpoint, the vehicles of Harrow and his group are stopped, and the Egyptian police department question Harrow's presence on the remote road. Stepping out of the first truck and refusing to show their papers, Harrow demands instead for the police to show them their souls. Striking his scepter onto the ground, purple energy emits from the chests of all the guards, all but one had their soul ripped out of their bodies. Harrow proclaims the officer is a good man and welcomes him among his group of disciples. Now, guys, at this point, I think Layla's intentions here were to exact revenge on Harrow. She saw her, she's got a dagger. I got to ask you, why do you think her soul didn't get sucked up? Because isn't that the whole idea, is that if she was going to be committing some sort of act or some sort of, she's at some point, why wasn't her soul sucked up? What do you guys think?
Yeah, that was a bit of a fuzzy part for me, because I think he was targeting those officers. With that, he wasn't
the cane,
targeting
so
his
he
own
wouldn't
people.
have. Okay, I see.
He wouldn't have known that Layla was with them. I saw it as that Harrow he has control of this power now, and he can target people, I think, and that's kind of what he did here. He targeted all of these enemies, if you will, of Amit, and had them judged. But I do think that that's a good call out, though, because this episode kind of feels a little messy, and we'll elaborate on that as we go. But it does feel very rushed. I think that's a consensus that a lot of people will have said in early thoughts about the finale, is that it does feel rushed, and rightfully so. I think this is the shortest episode. Second shortest, maybe.
One of them, yeah.
From the first, I think the first was like 43 minutes or something like that. So,
and Disney Plus has this is like, for the Marvel series, this is a common thing that was just like, it's almost to be expected at this point, is that the finales are going to be rushed. There's going to be a lot of CGI, that sort of thing. And that's
exactly
kind of what we got. We'll get into that as we kind of get into our overall thoughts of the episode. But I did feel like, for me at least, seeing this moment, because I didn't think that he has the ability that when he slams the thing down, that he can target people specifically. I thought it would just sort of be like a perimeter thing. So for me, I was like, oh, Amit's a complete sham. Amit doesn't care about who's actually getting sucked up. She just wants a bunch of souls to get sucked up. So I felt like maybe it didn't work properly, or that she just wasn't actually doing what she set out to do, at least from what I got from this.
To me, it looked like his little shockwave focused more on going forwards than backwards. She was in the last truck coming up that line in the 4 caravan, so it looked like he was facing the cops, and that was where the shockwave headed towards, not behind him where his followers were. And anyways, his followers have already been judged, so
right. He was holding up on the D-pad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Doing that forward smash
I think Darcy called it. I think when he smashes that thing, because there are security guards at the trucks behind him when he smashes it. Again, it kind of highlights the idea that I think he targeted them because his people have been judged. What he's doing right now is targeting those that are threatening them. It seems like he's imbued with this power now, right? He was given this gift to go to the next step of where Nate
or
will
his
take
cane
us
that gives him that power. Because if you look at, I know we're going to get down further, but when you look at when there's more people targeting more people, they're literally having to hold hands with them.
Yeah.
So he's got just a smaller extension of that power.
He's the true avatar.
Yeah, he's the true avatar there. So I think he still has to know who he's targeting with this. I'm with Justin there on that. I think that he had to know who he was judging.
Okay. Well, listen, as the disciples hurry to move the fallen bodies out of the way on the road, Layla quietly stalks behind, preparing to enact revenge on Harrow with a dagger. However, the voice of Taweret speaks through a dead body and stops her and tells her she needs to free Mark by bringing back Khonshu, and also excitedly suggests that Layla should become her avatar, which I was like, come on, let's go! At the Chamber of the Gods, the avatars of each of the gods in the Ennead arrive in a panic, sensing a great disturbance. Yatzil, the avatar of Hathor, asserts that someone is trying to release Ammit unto the world, and Selim, the avatar of Osiris, realizes it's Harrow. Harrow busts in with his crew and uses Ammit's power to take out all the Ennead's avatars, and then smashes the Ushabti and frees Ammit as Layla slips away. In her daunting and glorious presence, Ammit asks to whom she owes her gratitude. While kneeling in front of her, Harrow explains that Ammit owes him nothing for her freedom, while secretly hoping that, hey, listen, I kind of did all this stuff for you, so maybe you'll forgive my past with Khonshu, and balance, and hopefully she'll balance his scales. She lets him know he's going to be her avatar and places her hand on his head as his eyes glow purple. So, guys, let's talk about the big old crocodile in the room. What did you guys think of this fully realized Ammit, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, like, seeing that was pretty incredible. Love the voice. The whole idea, there was something that really bugged me about this, and it bugged me the first time I saw it, and then I watched the second time with my wife, Kate, and she immediately asked the same question, and it was, if Khonshu can bring back Moon Knight, why are all of these avatars dead, and why can't their gods bring them back? And that's what I didn't understand, because it kind of immediately leads to, like, we don't have enough gods, and that's kind of the thing. They can't, like, fight, and they're all just dead at the hands of an avatar. It just seemed a little bit messy in terms of, like, I don't know. I guess it was a great writing tool for later on in the episode, but
to go with, again, the Egyptian mythology that this show is so heavily based on, the moon was involved in the like this whole thing of cycle of rebirth and resurrection.
Okay,
as it's part of, like, the sun may go down and the moon may rise, but the next morning it'll still be there, type thing. It'll keep coming back, and it's all part of this cycle of resurrection and rebirth. So that kind of goes forward into his avatar, that he can, if so willing, he can keep using it.
So it's Khonshu specifically that can pull
Khonshu
this
specifically,
off.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure Osiris could probably do something similar, again, being the resurrection guy.
The god of resurrection, yeah.
But he is also the god of judgment, so he wouldn't want to bend the rules just for his own avatar.
Yeah, he probably seems a bit too proud, right? Like, Osiris is... Especially even Toert was saying, like, oh no, Osiris is going to be so pissed off. But, like, so, yeah.
Yeah. I think seeing Ammit in this full CGI felt earned. We haven't really gotten much of a visual spectacle of other gods other than Khonshu throughout this series. So it was good. Obviously, it's a giant CGI crocodile, so it's going to look like CGI. So I don't know, like, to me, I'm so desensitized. I'm not going to criticize it for that. But I will say this, Nate. You called out the fact that in the last sequence that kind of might show that Ammit's a sham because she only killed specific people. I think here, in the way she's judging Harrow, it really shows that she's a sham.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it really does show, because she's willing to take him even though
bend her
he's
own
not
rules.
Balanced. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, well, again, she mentions she was backstabbed by the one that was perfectly balanced, so why should she trust her own scales anymore? She's going to go with the bad guy who's imbalanced. And it's like,
exactly
right there, she's already changed her morals. So why would Arthur, who's been fighting for that standard, agree to help her? That was my
and he was ready to be
issue.
judged. He was ready to be judged and be held. He was being held. He was ready to die, essentially, at the hands of Emmett, once, because he knew he did his job. But once she, thrust it upon, well, you will become my avatar. He kind of was put in the same place as Mark Spector. Death or service.
Servitude, yeah.
Right?
I wish they had more time and maybe even more episodes to expand on, because that one scene of Ammit basically going back and bending her rules to suit her own needs, like, it's such a great finger pointing at, like, today's modern politics, and like there's so much more that they can, like, very easily expand and, like, relate to and get people on board with, and it literally was done in, like, a 2-minute scene, not even.
Thor: Love and Thunder might have a little bit more.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm hoping that that's kind of where that goes, but, like, for somebody to just literally throw all of their morals on the floor and become the villain like that, it seemed like such a big moment that was thrown away. But
right.
I agree with that. But I do want to say, as far as like a win is concerned with the Amit character. Like, I agree, Justin, from a CGI standpoint, looked a little cartoony, but she's an anthropomorphic crocodile, so she's kind of she has to emote a little bit. It's like when we were watching, Lion King, and we were like, oh, why do their faces look so goofy, like the live action version? But then it's like because they have to smile and emote and laugh. But
I never noticed any of that. I never.
No,
like, it just completely goes over my head. Like, until you guys say it, I'm like, I don't know. It looked like a god would look to me. Like,
I guess.
I was like, it looked amazing. I had nothing.
I mean, I remember watching Power Rangers fights where it was rubber costumes, and I gotta say, the CGI looks a hell of a lot better than that stuff. So
For sure.
Bouncy foam wop. Yeah.
But one thing that I loved about the Amit character, though, apart from her braids, was the fact that as an antagonist for Mark, she's perfect because in the fact that like Amit was prejudging people regardless of what they might become, just like how Mark's mom judged Mark on the one mistake that he made. And like Amit, right, she would never see good in him, just like Amit would never see good in these people beyond maybe that one thing that they might do in the future. I just thought the parallels, the way that it was written, was really, really fantastic.
Well, I think that's such a great call out, because I think then I don't think it's necessarily the villain for Mark, because I don't think this was the villain for Mark. This was the villain for Khonshu, obviously. Right. The two have their own way of getting the same results, which will be called out later in the episode. But they both have their different tactics of how they go about achieving that.
Yeah.
But I think it's great to go back to Mark's origin story and see that, there's seeds that are been planted there that they kind of show in those dream sequences that I think slightly imply that Khonshu always had his eye on Mark from the time of that first instance of grief, and maybe even helping to kind of bring that into his life.
Or at least potentially a part of Mark.
A part of Mark, exactly. And I think maybe his mom represents the Amit in his life that is judging him, as you said, based on that circumstance. So seeing these earthly bound situations being almost emulated again in these godlike personas. Do you know what I mean? Like it's an interesting parallel that more so has that tie-in, I think, rather than being like a source of direct conflict, because I feel like Harrow, he just was imbued with power of Emmett, right? He was still Arthur Harrow more than anything else, right?
Interesting. Okay, well, we're going to keep on going here with the recesses. Within the recesses of the Chamber of the Gods, Layla discovers the gallery where the Ashabtis of several gods lie, and Layla finds the one containing Khonshu and smashes it, releasing him. He immediately senses that Mark is dead, and with what seems like no remorse, offers the position of Moon Knight to Layla, to which she immediately turns down. After a back and forth over who truly ruined Mark's life, Khonshu informs Layla that to defeat Amit, they have to rebind her. Amit and her loyal followers are about to go do some soul-sucking throughout Cairo, but they're stopped by Khonshu, and the two gods have their first short battle. So, guys, clearly this shows that Mark, I feel like Mark didn't mean much to Khonshu if he was so willing just to jump into the next body. Do you guys think there was some reason that he might have been so ready to just take on Layla as an avatar, or was it just desperate?
I think it's desperate.
He also knew that Mark was dead, and without his powers, Mark ain't coming back. So
that's true.
Dead is dead type thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think
that is true.
He's probably done this 1,000 or more times, right? Like this isn't his first avatar. It's not like he hasn't had a lot of them. He's learned how to get over that separation, I'm sure. And I think it took precedence to say, hey, there's something here in this building that I need, and I need an avatar. Are you going to be it? When she said no, he was like, okay, well, I need to go figure that out then.
I did enjoy his tactic to try and emulate her father, calling her little bug. You know what I mean? Like my little.
He's trying to get into her mind. Yeah,
right.
Trying to get into her mind.
He's like, hey, I'm just like your dad. But I just think the fact that he was so willing to move into Layla's body, for something like that, kind of also made me feel like, yes, it was a desperate thing, but I kind of feel like he knows how capable she is, or how capable she could be. And I love how she's just like, she's too cool, and she straight up just denies his bony ass and just like, no, I don't want anything to do with this.
Right.
I think it goes to show, later on too, just the power that a god has with or without an avatar on this plane, because in this first fight scene, we kind of see Khonshu just get tossed around like no threat at all to Ahmed in this one fight. So again, that's because she has a full-on avatar right beside her, whereas he has nothing really tying him to this plane.
Yeah, that's true.
That
And
battle
you're
was
right.
awesome.
Yeah, it was a nice little quick look at some gods fighting again. Felt earned over the course of this series to get this, and I think also too, like, that's a good call out that later we will find out that Mark magically comes back, but he does inevitably go to him because he realizes he is alive, right? So it does feel like in this moment his lean on Layla was probably out of desperation, but really kind of a wink and a nod to the people that are watching the series and have been, because it was already implied that he had interest, and I use air quotes around that. He had interest in her. So for him to suddenly just ask, we now understand that the only reason he was asking was because of desperation, right? Like at the end of it.
Going a bit further with the whole Egyptian mythology lore is like the gods became personified through the thoughts of humans. And if Mark was convinced that Khonshu was going to go after Layla, it was almost like Khonshu had no choice but to ask Layla to be his avatar, because Mark believed so wholeheartedly that he was going to do that. So again, it's I like that whole idea of like the humans personifying these gods and giving them these aspects and characteristics that they, and then return to the humans and influence the humans to think that they are this way. Like it's a whole cycle of repeating itself type thing. I loved it.
It's kind of cool because that also plays into the idea of like the afterlife is ultimately whatever the humans in the MCU believe the afterlife is, and that's what they move into, and we even see it, and we're about to talk about it in this next sequence of like how Mark perceives the afterlife or wants the afterlife, what he wants the afterlife to be, in the sense that it's just super quiet and there's no noise in his head, and he can escape that and be on his own. But I just I love how they've kind of or even the aspect of with Harrow in the sequence where he talks about the pen, and he's talking about how it's just it can be a pen or it could be a dog's chew toy. It just depends on the perception of the person who's interacting with it, or the thing that's interacting with. So it's just super cool. Again, I think there's so many smart themes that are brought through this series in its writing. But again, just the way the episode was structured, kind of unfortunately took away from some of that. But let's get to that sequence that I'm talking about. At the Field of Reeds, Mark Spector takes in the peace and beauty as to where it assures him that his scales are balanced. His heart is finally full. His journey is over. Here, he is free from all pain, all loneliness, and hurt. But Mark can only think about Stephen. Unfortunately, he is gone as the Duat now has him. Mark demands they go back for Stephen. However, if he leaves the Field of Reeds, he will never be able to return, to where it tells him that he doesn't even need Stephen anymore, which further upsets Mark, so he turns back to search for Stephen as the Field of Reeds disappears. He finds Stephen outside the gates of Osiris, still frozen, and apologizes to him for failing to protect him. He places his heart in Stephen's hand, and they become frozen in sand. But then the gates open and the light sets them free. And after a big hug, they barely escape the sand tsunami with a little help from Tueret shredding a gnarly wave. What did you guys think of this beautiful reunion between Mark and Stephen Grant?
So tender. It was a very tender
It was
moment,
really nice.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was the closure that we needed for this part of the character journey. This is their unity. This is how they're binding themselves together, accepting each other for their past, the things that they had kept from each other that we learned in last week's episode. They've committed to each other rather than fighting one another. And I think that's like in this moment, and as we see the rest of the episode evolve, this is the beginning of that.
I think that's the most emotional we've seen Mark, realistically. Like he really was letting go of some
heavy
deep trauma, some heavy shit that he had going on there, and that really was like a I'm not alone moment, and like solidified everything that what you're saying from that last episode. Just solidified it, cemented the two of them as working together, and we're going to do this together, and they need each other. They're working together, and beautiful moment.
And talking about Amit as a parallel to Mark's past with his mom, this is a parallel to the loss of his brother, right? He failed to protect Randall. He fails to protect Steven again. And then we get this triumphant moment where, no, he didn't fail.
Yeah.
He saves his brother, right? Steven being his brother in this moment. And that's just it's so lovely. And the fact that he turns away from heaven, essentially, and escapes death just to save his brother, the one thing that he couldn't do, the one thing that defined him. Again, just such excellent writing in this messy episode, but it's just so these are the moments, these are the high points in the episode that I'm so happy we got in this finale. And I love this sequence, and I don't care how sort of cheesy it was that he puts his heart in his hand or whatever. Like, I'm like, oh, let's go, buddy.
They're sharing a heart. They're sharing one heart rather than two empty hearts.
Yeah.
And I never put together that it was like, oh, this is his chance of redemption.
Yeah, man.
That's a really great call out. But that's such a great moment.
I liked it more too, because it's introducing a lot of people to what DID can be at its core, like a trauma coping mechanism and stuff like that. And so I feel like with last episode, having half of him get erased and then he's okay to go was kind of like almost what, like, the clinical way of being like, you're insane, this is how we treat you.
Exactly.
But him turning back on that, being like, no, this is my illness, but I can live with it, it's part of me, was a really cool way of taking it, like denying that clinical aspect to like sever that part of you, even though that part of you is like integral to who you are.
So rather than cut the limb off, let's cure it. Like it was
exactly.
I thought that was a really cool way of, again, turning back on that last episode, because you thought it was going one way and he's like, nope, I can live with this. And again, I love that part of it.
And in a way, if both of them are in the duat in that moment, then maybe they're two souls. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he's literally, instead of it just being another personality, right, or another identity, it's in this universe, he's literally created another living soul.
I totally agree with you on that sentiment, and I think that was more so amplified in last week's episode, and just how they're discovering each other's past through their memories, understanding each other through that, and then here having this lovely closure. I think that it really does define that, that they are their own separate entities that need to accept one another. I think to Darcy's point, it just takes the concept of DID in a different direction, right? It rather than just being super clinical with it embraces that the idea of they're both halves to the same whole, right? Like, if that makes sense.
And acceptance.
Yeah. Exactly. Acceptance. Yes, absolutely.
It's just beautiful. Mark and Steven
so lovely.
Mark and Steven awaken back in Alexander the Great's burial chamber and pop 2 bullets out of their chest as their healing factor returns, along with the Moon Knight suit. They meet up with Khonshu again, and he asks them to help him defeat Amit. Now switching seamlessly between their identities, Steven, as Mr. Knight, appears, asking to redefine their working arrangement. I love this little bout of confidence that Steven has in this moment. Khonshu is shocked by the amount of confidence that Steven has, and begrudgingly agrees to release both of them, saying they have his word. Specifically, both of them, and maybe we'll talk about that later. Back in the main chamber, Layla finds Selim dragging himself to safety, and with his final breaths, he informs her that they need to imprison Amit into a mortal form so she'll be vulnerable. Without other options, Layla gives in to Tewerit's requests and allows her to take control of her body. Delighted that Layla has had a change of heart, she is beyond thrilled to take Layla on as her temporary avatar, revealing that Layla's father will be over the moon, nice choice of words, once he hears about this. Surprising Layla that Tewerit actually met him as she accompanied him into the field of reeds, which is just, again, a really lovely sentiment that he did pass on to the field of reeds. It's really nice.
You're going to use lovely in your wrap up for sure.
This was a lovely episode. And then within the chambers, Layla emerges among the rubble. Now as the avatar of Tewerit, Layla stands before us as the Scarlet motherfucking Scarab in ceremonial armor, complete with wings. Guys, let's talk about this reveal. We commented last week how much we wanted to see Tewerit carry on in the MCU, how delightful she was, and how much we loved May Calloway as Layla. And now seemingly they'll both continue, but in a way that I don't know if any of us fully expected. What did you think of our first look at the Scarlet Scarab?
Before you joined in here, Justin and I and Darcy were all talking about how, like, oh, wow, there's so much that we're going to talk about, and how we speculated kind of all over the place of what would happen. Nothing like this came out. And I think that this was like such a great surprise moment, because I feel like we did so much speculation that some things almost just the idea that they might exist kind of ruined the surprise. So this happening, and just, I mean, I think it was mentioned a little bit that she is that character, but that was about it. I just wasn't expecting to see it. When Tawera says, I have such a great costume, as like the rubble's coming down, and then you see her come out, and it's such a great costume. Even Kate, my wife, was like, oh, wow, that's a really nice costume. And I'd already seen it. So I'm like biting my tongue, being like, oh, you haven't seen it yet. And then those wings come out. She's like, oh, like, it's just such a great moment. Like, it's such a, like, oh, it's just so badass and looked wicked.
Yeah, this was the fist pump in the air moment, I think.
100%
call. Because I was talking about it, I think, not just last week, but the week before, just the theory that obviously that her father was the Scarlet Scarab in the comics, you know, and that they're obviously going a different route with this version of the character. So I assumed this was going to happen. I didn't see it though potentially happening here. I thought we were building towards that. But the reveal of this and how they're introducing, you know, the Scarlet Scarab through Layla, I think is extremely, extremely exciting for the future of her character and what that means going into hopefully a season 2.
I like how you guys are talking about the Scarab, like the Scarlet Scarab, as if he's a big MCU character, and he's really just some very obscure early Captain America character.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why you guys are so excited for the future. He was just some random one-off villain. Not something that I'd write home about. But
no, but I think the interesting thing is taking that character, because like this whole show is about celebrating Egyptian mythology and Egyptian culture, and that was one of the first characters that imbued that, right? And I think that having that
as a villain,
as a villain,
he was a villain. You're stereotypical villain,
and that's why I'm still curious to see if Layla would become Moon Knight's villain. That was my theory.
Maybe that might be the case.
They nipped that right in the bud. They literally were like she's like, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" The kid, and she's like, "Yes." Like, I think they were straight up like, "We're going a different path. We like, you may be thinking this might be going this way. Don't know. She's a hero and she's badass."
Yeah, this is going to be completely separate from the MCU thing. At first, I thought it was just, fun way of tying in this Egyptian character from the comics by introducing his daughter and stuff like that. That was a neat nod to the comics. This next step is really cool. I'm really excited for it. I just don't know if it was entirely necessary to have the name and have this basis on a character that, again, was a stereotypical Egyptian villain when he was first introduced.
But see, they don't label her the Scarlet Scarab though, right?
They do.
No, but they have come out and said she is. Like the producer or someone on the show has said that she is the MCU Scarlet Scarab.
Marvel.com also confirmed. Yeah.
But so it is confirmed in universe.
But I want to just say, like, I think the coolest aspect about it, sure, because again, I looked up the origins of the Scarlet Scarab after you had kind of mentioned them last week, Justin, and I was like, oh, okay, it's a villain. Okay, maybe that might be the case. I just like the fact that, you know what? Yeah, it's a minor character, but this is the whole point of these shows, is to celebrate these minor characters. For the most part, I think Moon Knight is a pretty obscure MCU character. When this show was first announced, there weren't a ton of people that follow the general MCU fans that would get excited over Moon Knight, and now people love Moon Knight, and now people love Layla, and I'm excited to see more of her in the MCU. I thought, she was fantastic in this episode, and I also just wanted to shout out, like, I love the fact that this show just puts the hints all over the place, and when you rewatch these episodes and when you go back over it, like the most recent one, I think for her with the scarab thing is like the Band-Aid inside she's inside the asylum
when she has
right on her pinky, and it's a little scarlet scarab, and you're just like, finger, okay, that's either a nod to her father or it is going to be her becoming Scarlet Scarab.
I like that it's there and that this is a change. Like, Darcy's right. Like, it's just literally a name. It's a character name, and that's the only thing they've pulled from the comics. But realistically, it could be like, I don't know. Is Scarlet Scarab, is that with Taweret? Is that who he's? an avatar
it's
for,
just
or it's just a name? Like straight up
It's
just
just
a name
he
and you
puts
know
on as a
nothing about
Captain
him.
America villain. Yeah, he's a Captain America
Okay.
villain who goes by the Scarlet Scarab. So it was around that time where it was just
Yeah.
like slap, this name on some foreign enemy, and boom, you have a Captain America.
Yeah, pick a
Gotcha,
color,
yeah.
pick an animal, villain.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
what's
there you
great?
go.
Well, there was Blue Beetle who was in
That's
DC.
DC,
So,
Yeah.
but the one thing that it could be, like, you really could have her dad have been a villain. Like, you don't know his whole stories. Not the way
True.
I feel like we'd ever see it, but realistically, he could have been a kind of like wishy-washy, some sort of villain. That's what got him into that
Interesting.
messy place that he is, and that's what also put Taweret as a servant in the realm that she's in. Like, she's stuck moving people from one place to another on this ship. Like, she's not living the greatest life.
I would agree with you, other than the fact that he moved into the Field of Reeds. That's the only thing. Would he have moved into the Field of Reeds if he was a bad guy? Is that how that works?
If
I don't know.
if he got redemption in the end,
Maybe
Maybe
his
he-
scales balanced.
yeah,
Maybe
you
his-
can ba-
maybe
you
his-
can always
Maybe his heart
balance your
balanced.
scales.
Yeah.
A lot of speculation of something that could not, like, might be or might not be. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do here, man. Come on. Jeez.
Yeah.
Speculate for
Let
we
me
speculate
read
the
into
shit
it.
out of that Band-Aid like there's no tomorrow. I will say though that one of the highlights though really that stood out for me was the transition before we saw the costume. We get to see this sort of DID split personality act happening with Layla as she's going between
Having a conversation with Taweret.
having
yeah.
a conversation with Taweret and herself, and she's like
Yeah.
going in and out, and I just love how the mannerisms, the body language, everything
Very well done.
changes. Yeah, it was she did a really great job. She's done a really great job throughout this entire series. I think she's probably one of the highlights for me. And yeah, I think here we got to really see her sort of flex this muscle of where she's playing different versions of herself in one, right?
She was dope. Outside of the Chamber of the Gods, at the peak of the pyramid overlooking Cairo, Harrow and Amit start going off as Harrow's followers start judging people en masse, and their souls start flying into Amit's gullet. And she grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And then out of nowhere, Moon Knight charges towards Harrow and knocks him into the sky. And thus begins an epic battle where we see Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, and the Scarlet Scarab take on Harrow and his crew with some last-minute assistance from a third alternate as a kaiju-sized battle between gods erupts over the pyramids. Which, if you're keeping track, was something that, Justin, you jokingly predicted in our last episode that they were going to fight over a literal pyramid. What did you guys think of this, I think, incredible battle sequence?
I loved it. I made that Power Rangers comment earlier for a reason, in that this was a much better big boss fight than those Power Rangers shows. Like, I felt the weight of each of those punches and like the slugging around. I loved it. Everything about it, the changing, and the fact that they would go from the avatars fighting to the gods. It was
The
a really cool
perspectives were
pacing
done.
and perspective change
Really
for
well
that
done.
whole
Yeah.
scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, the way they weaved the two fights together was absolutely fantastic. But I got to say, the highlight for me, other than seeing kaiju style gods fighting, was seeing Mark and Steven flawlessly weave back and forth from personalities through this fight sequence. It really does, again, it's that 1-2 to the scene that we got before, where they unite, they embrace, they accept each other. And then here we see just how flawless that's become, in that they're literally synced up, and they're going from personality to personality. And just to see Steven or Mr. Knight kicking ass again, that confidence boost, right? Like that whole experience on that boat changed that motherfucker. So he's kicking ass and taking names, I think.
Just the way they fought so fluidly, swapping between the two of them, like, it reminded me of like the get hype team up moment in No Way Home. You know what I mean? Like, it was so fluid, and like when Mr. Knight throws the baton and it bounces back to Moon Knight, like, it's so cool the way they use the camera to go off and then come back, and it's like a blink or you miss it moment where you're like, oh, whoa, they switched. I thought it was so well done. And I don't care how, you mentioned it already, Mike, the line, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" I think that's dope, as cheesy as it was, because it speaks to what Marvel has been doing for generations of people wanting to see themselves in this world.
Yeah.
And from a comic book standpoint, they started doing that, and it's only been carried through in the MCU significantly. And I really dug it, man. She's totally keeping to wear it, and I'm so stoked about that. It's not temporary at all.
I hope so, at least, because, to see the action that Layla brought herself throughout this fight sequence was awesome. That felt well earned. We've been getting glimpses of it throughout the series, of just seeing her, in small amounts, kick ass and stand her own. And here she's rewarded with powers that allow her to really fucking bring action. So it's like her future seems super bright in the MCU, given what they've done here.
If anything, I think she's going to have a nice long sit down to work out some proper terms of engagement, because that was a very spur of the moment thing, and she even said temporary as she's running down that hallway there. So I feel like hopefully they're gonna have a Moon Knight-esque, or sorry, Mr. Knight-esque conversation with Towerette to really iron out those details.
Yeah. I can see this turning into, with the way, what a great character for so many different people and different, diverse fans out there. And for this not to become some sort of comic book, I would be so surprised if there's not a, Scarlet Scarab #1 in our near future, realistically.
Be so cool.
Yeah.
So cool. I mean, I think a lot of people were comparing her to Wonder Woman, right? And especially with that costume and what have you.
Just kind of a She-Ra,
Yeah, totally.
Very She-Ra. I totally agree. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of funny that you bring up Wonder Woman, because the director of this episode actually went on the record of saying that he disliked how Wonder Woman represented Egyptian culture. It kept it in a very Oriental style, and it didn't seem to embrace any of the modern sort of touches. And it kept it very primitive versus kind of embracing certain elements. So I think it's funny that you call out the fact that the costume looks like Wonder Woman, especially how hard he shit on that one, just for cultural inaccuracy.
It was just kind of like, hold my beer, I can do this better.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
It's also funny that he is on record as saying he doesn't like Wonder Woman, because I think the costume designer for the Scarlet Scarab said they were inspired by the Wonder Woman comics. Isis's character from the comics, they were inspired by a lot of comic book heroines throughout the ages, and Wonder Woman was on, the top of the list when they were designing that costume. So very funny that director was like, no, screw them. But then the guy was like, but she looks great, so
take what you want.
Take it.
Take what you want. Move on.
Exactly, yeah. I think though, and I know we're going to get to discussing it at the end of this breakdown, but were you guys a little bit upset here that they skipped over us seeing, let's just say for now, the third personality or third identity? They skipped over him doing his thing.
I was, but then I wasn't later. If that means anything.
It all makes sense for this pacing. They're setting up more.
They're setting something up.
Makes you want to learn more of this character.
Exactly.
And I want to learn more of this character.
Only because that was one of my predictions, was that it was going to come down to them getting beat up, and the third alternate was going to save them, which did happen. We just didn't get to see it. And I was like,
I wanted to see it so bad.
It might have been too much of a what the fuck moment, where people who weren't expecting it, people that weren't, speculating about it, would be like, what the fuck is this? Who is this? What is happening right now? So I feel like that's probably why, so that they could, later on throw that in. But two things happened in this that I had predicted pretty closely that I'm proud of, is that, and then that Moon Knight would show up to a massive kind of battle happening. Justin threw it on the pyramids, and we kind of all wrapped it up in a bow there.
There you go.
I mean, I feel like, if, again, coming from the fan of comics and how they've changed a lot of stuff while staying true to a lot of the core aspects of this character. Mm-hmm. And one of the core aspects of the Mr. Knight character is his ruthless brutality, which seems to be embodied by this third personality now, which feels almost not, Disney level MCU. They don't like their heroes being over the top violent, and then that, I think, is what that hero is. So the aftermath is all we need to understand how vicious he is. So I'm totally okay with this mystery of how he fights. All we know is that he gets results.
And who knows if the future bringing Deadpool into the MCU how bloody could we get if we get to see these two fight side by side?
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute.
Oh, he's the
That'd be
rated
pretty
R.
dope.
He's the rated R Moon Knight that we see, but
Right?
but we don't see him. Oh, that's interesting.
They keep them separated.
That is a really great way to just eliminate it from Disney, like the more Disney Marvel properties. Like the PG versions just don't get to see it, and any R-rated content, which we will see and we will get it, you're going to see it.
They're definitely leaning up to it for sure. Yeah.
For sure.
I think if that's the route they're going and saving it, I think it'd be well worth that payoff.
I dig that. Right.
Yeah.
I dig that. I wonder if
call-out.
we'll see more. We'll see some other characters then show up in that sort of R-rated world, like maybe a Punisher.
Oh, we'll talk.
Yeah.
Just going comic related here. There's the Marvel universe, and then there's the Max universe, which is just R-rated comics.
Yeah.
And I feel like that could be the direction they go with the MCU going forward.
Darcy, you've never told me about this Max universe. You're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to look into that
Wolverine
later.
Max is amazing. One of my favorite comic book series, hands down.
Oh, sick. Okay. Now I'm stoked to get back to reading. But let's keep going here. Layla knows how to end this all. She tells Mark to grab Harrow and the pieces of his scepter, and they go back to the Chamber of the Gods, and they place the unconscious and battered Harrow onto a slab of stone. They begin an incantation and manage to suck Amit into Harrow's almost dead body. Khonshu tells Mark to finish the job, and Mark believes he has to do this, otherwise he'll never be free. Layla stops him, reminding him that he is free, and that he does have a choice. Believing that Khonshu now sounds exactly like Amit, Mark lets go of Harrow. If Khonshu wants them dead, he'll have to do it himself. Now, Khonshu must release Mark and Steven. Sorry, I don't know why I said it that way. He'll have to do it himself. Now Khonshu has to release Mark and Steven. Khonshu begrudgingly complies, causing Mark to glow a big bright light out of his chest. And then all of a sudden, Steven is back in Dr. Harrow's office, questioning if this is what reality looks like. He asks the good doctor if he believes that Khonshu and Amit are real. Harrow responds no, he does not, as he gets up and walks back to his chair. Mark's voice poses that they disagree, and they believe in something different. Dr. Harrow deduces that their work here continues. Looking at the floor, Mark notices Harrow's trail of bloody footprints, which leaves the doctor perplexed. Realizing that Harrow doesn't know as much as he leads on, Mark and Steven refuse to accept his diagnosis. Instead, they'd rather go save the world, claiming, "Later's Gators." Mark suddenly wakes up in Steven's apartment, and his leg is shackled by his homemade restraints. The sand around his bed is undisturbed, and Mark calls out to Steven out loud if he's there, to which Steven responds that he can't believe it worked. Mark, however, can't believe Steven lives in this freaking mess of an apartment. So, guys, what did we think of this final sequence here, seeing the defeat of Harrow both in reality and in Mark's head, and finally seeing both identities sharing one space?
Well, I think that it's pretty clear that it wasn't just Mark and Steven in that conversation, but we got the third personality as well.
1,000%. That was a different accent.
Right? And I think he was basically saying his goodbyes to Harrow and saying that, I'm in control and I'm not going anywhere, because wherever Harrow was going after that, mentally he's checked out. As we will talk about. When I saw them in the office, I was like, okay, this is like this sort of final goodbye. They're saying a fond farewell. But it was crazy to hear, Mark, Steven, and just this other personality. And I got to say, like, it was just so apparent based on the demeanor that it wasn't Mark or Steven.
Oh, that's not Mark's voice and his facial expressions, the way he says Doc was a full New York accent.
Oh, I see that. I see it. You see that? That wasn't Mark. That was Jake Lockley. That was our first conversation with this character. That wasn't like small moments. Like there's chunks there that you can pull out that's Jake Lockley. Right? Yeah. I just feel
it was all three of them, because Mark was speaking at times too. Like there was all three of them changing. Jake had the smallest part of the three in that conversation. I think because coming from the comic base, the storyline where Mark is in a psych ward was all Khonshu's doing in the end as a way to help heal Mark's fractured mind. So I feel like that is still the situation going on here, where this pure white insane asylum is Khonshu's way of keeping the other identities out of the way while Jake or someone else is running the show in the real world. So I feel like that's what happened there, is the two got transported to this or shunted to this, mindscape, while Jake or Khonshu took their body back to where they needed to be after maybe sealing up some loose ends.
Okay.
Before they get to that bed, and then that's where their consciousness.
So that's how they get. That's how they get back.
It's
to the
Khonshu's pulling the strings in their mind to be like, "You are the only two here. Don't worry. This is all normal," type thing.
And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that and Jake very soon. I did want to just quickly jump in and just going back to seeing them in the same apartment. Two fish. I like the fact that there's two fish now.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they sort of, they managed to defeat Harrow in both senses, in their mind and in real life. And I think it's the final step to becoming free of him, at least. And I love, almost the final step. And I love how they, just like in the comic books, they can freely talk to each other without having to see each other within reflections. And like you said earlier, Justin, they embrace each other so much to the point where they actually invite each other in. You hear, Mark actually say, like, "Steven, where are you? Like, I need you with me." Yeah. And I love that, man. I think that's so super cool.
Yeah, again, you just mentioned the comics. Like, in the comics, Steven is Mark's best friend from the moment he's created. They always interact with each other and play together. So the fact that we finally get to see that come to fruition in the MCU is a huge payoff for Moon Knight fans.
Exactly. And it's a huge payoff for the character. Because, like, going from the point of not knowing each other and wanting to ignore each other's status, they are now accepting each other and appreciating one another and wanting to have one another nearby. There's things that this finale 100% nails that I think, above all the messiness, it really does hit home some important themes, as Nate said.
I love that part. Like, it shows them taking comfort in having the other with them, and in all matters, both when needed and when not, just to have them there. I'm with you though on that sort of last scene in the doctor's office. Like, I was kind of confused by it. Like, the conversation that I heard, like, I only heard Steven's voice and what I assumed was Jake Lockley's voice. Like, I was like, that is a Brooklyn, New York accent that is not Mark by any means, but that was just in my, and I didn't hear anything else, but I'm bad at that. But I didn't understand, like, so the like, why am I bleeding? Was that just literally to be like, oh, this is too weird, and that was kind of the call out, or did I miss something there?
I think part of it really did come down to, like, that was Harrow's
he's feeling
in the real life. Well, I think it was Harrow's dedication and almost the fact that I feel like that was kind of slipping near the end for him, where he started to maybe not believe so wholeheartedly in Amit and what she was trying to accomplish, and maybe that was part of his fear, right? Maybe that's part of his fear manifesting itself somehow within.
See, I didn't think that was
mind.
even Harrow at all. I was like, okay, this is Harrow, but like Mark and Steve and Jake or whoever that might be is recognizing that this isn't real and you're trying to dupe me again and your foot's bleeding and you don't know why. And that's so weird that it kind of sets it off where they go, I'm not supposed to be here. Laters Gators.
It's like when you wake yourself up from a dream.
Because it's so weird. Yeah, you're all of a sudden you're lucid because you realize it's
you're
way
like,
too
oh,
weird.
you know it's a dream. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And
that was my
that's
take.
kind of what I'm totally on board with you there. And that whole aspect and thinking was what got me to the point where I was like, that must be Khonshu's doing. Like, Khonshu wants Mark and Steven to think they're all done with him. Everything, like, Harrow's done, this is done, we have no more reason to help out Khonshu. So they, in their minds, are free of him. And I think that was intentional on Khonshu's part. Again, we see later on, he clearly has more. He
scripted the whole thing. Yeah.
This body. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you pointed it out that if Khonshu's building the confines of the insane asylum in this series as a means to protect Mark and Steven so that they're unaware of whatever third altar is running about doing business, maybe that third altar doesn't need the Moon Knight powers just because they are so ruthless. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't need the caping of the powers. It's just that they're imbued with that powers and they're just ruthless. Do you know what I mean? Like,
but maybe they do need the healing factor. I feel like that's
the
real
only
handy
thing. But
in that line of work.
Yeah, for sure. But the only thing I feel like is that you don't need. he didn't need, I don't think he needs the costume.
He doesn't need the suit. No,
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. Well, let's just get to it, guys. But before we do now, just so everyone knows, if you're listening, you've gotten this far. If we haven't already spoiled things for you, there is an end credit scene that I'm so stoked to talk about. But this is your reminder right now. Again, we are full spoilers. If you haven't seen this end credit scene because maybe you just didn't think there was one, go watch it and then come right back rapido. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering this, Sankovic's Psychiatric Hospital, a disheveled and sedated Arthur Harrow knocks over a cup of coffee that he perceives as sand, and a hospital attendant signals that it's time for bed. However, as she approaches Harrow, a gloved man tells her in Spanish that he's got him as he begins to wheel Harrow away. As they're heading down the hallway, Harrow grows concerned as he begins to notice slumped bodies in the hallway and at the reception area. Harrow is placed inside a long white limo as the driver heads to the front seat. Looking across from him, Harrow spots Khonshu in a white formal suit, and he starts laughing that Khonshu can't hurt us. Bemused, Khonshu reveals that he never wanted Layla as his avatar after they parted ways. Why would he ever need any other avatar when Mark doesn't realize how troubled he truly is? As the limo window divider rolls down, Khonshu introduces Harrow to Mark's third alter, Jake Lockley, who shoots him, saying in Spanish, "Today is your turn to lose." And then we see the limo with the plates Spectre drive off into the unknown. Guys, what does this mean for Mark and Steven? And what did you think of the reveal, finally, of Jake Lockley?
Loved it. He's wearing his hat, his little cowboy or newsy hat.
newsy
He's
hat.
a driver. He's a driver. He's
Yeah.
a driver of sorts, right? So, you know, the cab hints, kind of, obviously it wasn't a cabbie. That's right. I was like, oh, he's going to wheel him to a cabbie. He's going to wheel him to a cabbie. But no, it's like some decked out limo, because I know Mark Spector in the comics is extremely wealthy and is like a
Stephen Grant is.
Oh, sorry. Stephen
Yeah.
Grant.
Stephen Grant is the billionaire.
Yes, Stephen Grant is the billionaire. You're absolutely right. My apologies. He Mark Spector is the mercenary. But yeah, Stephen Grant has money. But it was just interesting that Spector was on the car. So I don't know if it was like maybe here Mark Spector is wealthy in this world.
Maybe Jake Lockley is wealthy. I think they took everything out of that whole bunch and they threw them all in a blender and just pulled a few out and gave them to different names of those identities.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
seems like it.
It'd be interesting to see if Jake Lockley is a billionaire, given his what we have already seen to be a very ruthless personality. What I think they've done, though, is Mr. Knight rode around in a white limo with the license plate Spectre in the comics. That is, and he was the ruthless killer. I think that was just a nod, being like, Mr. Knight is still here to some extent. He just doesn't wear a white suit anymore.
Yeah.
And so, like, this is the payoff to the comic fans, being like, look, you will get more Mr. Knight stories. It'll just be Jake Lockley telling those stories.
I saw that limo.
Speaking
that
of-
limo was in the 2014 run, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
I read
Yeah.
the first issue.
Well,
of that.
speaking of the comic books and nods to the comic books, fun fact.
The look of
Khonshu
comics.
the
was wearing a
hospital.
suit.
Oh yeah, well we'll get to that. But the hospital at the end is named after Bill Sienkiewicz, who is one of Marvel's first infamous comic book artists and the person who drew the very first issue of Moon Knight. So I thought that was really, really cool that they managed to throw that name in there. They seem to keep doing that sort of thing throughout these Marvel series. But yes, dude, 100%. The fact that he's in the white suit, he's got his legs crossed, just like he does on that page in the comic books. Super cool.
It's Khonshu from the comics that I wanted to see this whole series. We finally got
Mr.
him.
Khonshu.
I can't wait for more stories.
Yeah, it's Mr.
Khonshu.
It's
in that
Mr.
avenue.
Khonshu. Yeah, I feel like this was a payoff. It also just shows such a sense of control that Khonshu has in this situation. Like, it seems like he's almost another person with Mark and Steven than he is with Jake Lockley, right? He seems to, it seems like Jake Lockley is his hitman, right? And he's, he's like going to roll around in this baller friggin' thing and be like, we're going to kill that man over there.
He knows,
You know what I mean?
yeah. He knows the relationship he has with Jake. I think this whole sequence is super wicked, and I wanted to call out again the cup of sand that Harrow sees, the coffee. It's cool because here again, it speaks to the idea of wanting to escape that reality and wanting to escape that situation so bad. He sees his home, right? He sees the sands of Cairo, which I think Harrow would probably consider to be his home. And he, and then you see the black gloves, and you're like,
the hat
this
and the
guy's
reflection
done.
was cool.
This guy is done.
I don't know if Harrow's seeing home. I think it's more Amit inside Harrow who's seeing home.
There you go.
You got to remember, Amit is trapped in that body.
Yeah.
She's the one who's causing to see the sand. She longs to go back to where she can rule.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to assume then that the events that we saw here are what happened in between the time that he was in the hospital talking with Harrow and when
he wakes back up in his bed.
When he wakes back
100%.
up in his bed, right?
100%.
So,
but I do want to just quickly mention, I think even though this was such a little look at Jake Lockley, this sequence I think is my favorite end credits moment of at least the MCU Disney Plus shows. I think out of all of them, this was the most badass. I almost expected the music at the end of The Matrix, like Matrix 1 to start playing, like just some butt
Rage
rock.
Against the Machine.
Yeah, Rage Against the Machine starts
Yeah.
playing as they drive off. Like I was just like, that is so
Can't stop
freaking
us now.
cool. Right? Like that's what, and if this was a movie in the 90s, that's when the credits would start rolling and it would just be, dude, it was so good. It was so good.
It sets up a lot though. It does
Totally.
set up
And
a lot.
I think the other thing that I wanted to kind of, hang on. Let's get to our final sequence, because I was about to do some predictions here, which is our prediction segment for what we think will be revealed in the future of, I guess, the MCU, and in this case, the future of these characters. Friends, I want to know what the Pharaoh is going to happen next. Mike, why don't you kick us off for what you think?
Oh, man.
We're gonna when are we gonna see all the Knights of the Moon?
I honestly
again?
I wasn't sure because in the beginning I'm like I know we're gonna see him again. There's no chance you're not gonna see Moon Knight again. But in terms of when, I honestly don't know. Can we circle back to me because I don't even haven't even formulated a prediction from where this goes.
Yeah. Justin, where do you think we're going to see the Knights of the Moon again?
I think we're going to see them sooner than later. I just don't think we're going to see them in anything directly associated with what's going on in the MCU. I feel like what we're going to get a season 2 that I think will probably explore this character even more because if anything with this finale that is entirely clear, there's more story to tell with Moon Knight.
Yeah.
And Layla and this world. I think that there's more to tell here that hasn't been entirely explored yet, especially for how abrupt the ending felt. Do you know what I mean? It just feels so abrupt that it feels purposeful. So I feel like we will get a season 2 a season 2 announcement sooner rather than later. In regards to that, I don't know where and when we would see this character kind of show up in the MCU, if it's not like Blade or something like that, right? But I feel like
Darcy's shaking his head here. I think he might have some ideas.
Well, I mean, the fact that Khonshu, he has said it many times in this show, he's the protectors of the travelers in the night, directly goes clearly vampires, beings who thrive and feast upon people at night, are definitely on his hit list because they're beings who should be dead and aren't staying dead. That is top of his list. In the comics, he's fought them before. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is on the Dark Avengers mystic side of things with the Blade, the Black Knight, all these characters that we are being introduced to already or being told are going to have more stories. That's where he's going to fit in, is that mystic side, the dark, spooky arts.
I don't disagree with any of that. I just feel like before we get to that, we're going to get another season 2 that's going to help explain this character more because I don't think we're done with this character. Do you feel resolved with Moon Knight? Now that we've been introduced to Lockley, there's just more I think that is a potential to explore for his character. Whether that happens sooner rather than later, I guess, Kevin Feige will make that decision.
I expected Jake Lockley to show up in this sort of episode and to be fleshed out, maybe not a ton, not fully fleshed out, but to sort of get to a point where you understood that he was there and maybe what he was about. We didn't get that, and so I do feel that there is a lot of unfinished. So I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see Oscar Isaacs until Moon Knight season 2. But at the same time, I just can't imagine waiting that long for him to be involved. It would be really cool to see him involved in Blade. What's Blade slated for? Is that this
next year,
2023?
2023, I think. Yeah.
So I mean, TV
Maybe
goes
2024.
quick, so we could get a season 2 before MCU.
It depends
TV
too,
but yeah,
right? Like we don't know what's been agreed upon
Yeah.
outside of it. It's like maybe they've already agreed to a season 2. It's just figuring out the schedule, and they're just
maybe
gonna
he's like, I want to go
announce it
do
when production
8 movies before I come back to do MCU stuff. You know, he's
Maybe. Oh, that's true too. He could, but he seems really like he loves this character. There's
really
you put an
lost
Emmy
the
in his hand,
character.
and he'll be back to play it real quick, I'm sure.
That's but that's also really sad if that has to happen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
It's reality.
so yeah, it's true. It is true.
I feel like we'll get Moon Knight again in like Blade or something going forward before we maybe explore that Jake Lockley aspect, because I feel like that could almost happen in his next appearance, is the Mark Steven finding out there is a third one and he is maybe more dangerous than they've thought about.
Yeah.
Like he's more than just this protector who comes in at the last second to save them. He's kind of going on doing his own thing that they didn't know about.
Yeah.
I think you're totally right, Darcy. I could see, I want to agree with you, Justin, because I do want a season 2 of Moon Knight before we see him in the MCU. But I kind of feel like we'll see him in the MCU before we get a season 2, and I think it would be kind of dope to see him show up in like Werewolf by Night, which is the upcoming special.
That's without a doubt. I think that goes without saying. That character if he's gonna show up. Yeah, if he's going to show up as maybe Moon Knight, it's going to probably be there.
I never even
Right.
heard of this Werewolf by Night. What is this?
Yeah, Michael
It's a
Giacchino directing Werewolf by Night Halloween special.
That was the
which
original
is-
introduction to his character, wasn't it?
Correct.
Darcy?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it was
Cool.
the original
So, yeah.
introduction to Moon Knight. So it's going to be a special. So
Has
like
to happen.
Correct me if
It
I'm wrong.
has
He
to
was in
happen.
Secret Invasion as well, though, was he not? In the comic run. So, like,
Oh, yeah.
that's not that far away, isn't it? Secret Invasion?
Right,
is-
Secret-
again.
Secret War is coming, right? Or is it
Secret War, that's the newer story, and he wasn't so much involved
No.
in Secret War.
Oh,
Secret
okay,
War is about the war between the different universes, essentially.
Oh,
Oh
we're
no,
not-
you're right.
So
Secret
that might be where
Invasion.
Secret
Secret
Invasion's
Invasion
coming,
is
isn't it?
coming. Yeah, it's a mini series that's coming with Emilia Clarke, but it's supposed to deal with more of the Skrulls. So
That's the
I don't-
Skrull invasion.
Yeah.
the
Moon
Skrull
Knight was
invasion.
involved in the original comic run of that too, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
with the character they've built this time he'll be involved much.
Right.
with
But
that.
we could see him show
Yeah.
up in Blade. I think they are working towards the Midnight Suns, and I would love to see a season 2 of this show of Mark and Steven. You know, they could pad out a couple or 1 or 2 episodes of getting to just see them live their everyday life together, and they're so happy. But then maybe one of them wants to try dating because maybe they're not with Layla anymore, and we get to actually see a date of both of them go on this date and try to explain the situation to some poor woman. And I also think that them tying themselves up at the end, you're absolutely right, Darcy. That's Jake. I think that they're trying to figure out what's going on with them. Why would at the end of this, why would the two of them, if they're happy together, start tying themselves up? It doesn't make any sense. They're working together. They're not gonna be apart. When they wake up, it's both of them waking up. So they're not.
Yeah, it's Jake tying them.
So
tying
it's
them up.
Jake. No, it's either
It's
Jake
Mark
tying
and
them
Steven.
up, or it's Mark and Steven knowing, hey, there's a third person in us, and we need to tie ourselves up to try and figure out what's going on. So I think as far as the season 2 is concerned, I would love it to see them focusing on figuring that out while dealing with Bushman. I think if Bushman made a comeback, I think would be super cool to see if, like, because he's him. They never really talk about what happened to him.
yeah.
I think that's your Joker
your villain.
level
Yeah, for sure.
villain for Mark going forward. I think would be really, really cool, and I think there would just be I think there's more to that moment with Layla's dad dying, then
we know.
Been,
yeah, exactly.
We've been given.
It
100%.
could be. It could totally be what Mike was predicting, where it's like he is shady. He was a bad guy. Maybe he was doing some shady business that actually got him killed.
And well, Mark also says like you don't know the whole story. Like he might know that her dad was and doesn't want to tell her. Doesn't want to taint her perception.
That's
of,
a good call.
Of
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. I still feel like he was a good guy. That whole Land of Reeds thing goes a long way.
Yeah.
And the fact that he got into the Land of Reeds and Tawaret spoke so fondly of him.
Yeah.
I don't think that she would do that about some guy who is trying to resurrect Ahmet or go about those lines, something involved with these affecting Egyptian deities. It doesn't seem like something that would float their boats and be like, yep, you can still come through the Land of Reeds. We're all good there.
And I think sorry to interrupt, I think she would be really proud of him because his whole thing, and I think Layla's whole thing, according to this series, is that they're almost like the Robin Hoods of Egyptian items, right? Of Egyptian like important things to Egyptians.
Antiques.
So antiques, right? So they take these things from museums and they try to put them back in their original positions, right? They steal these things from rich assholes and try to like, instead of it being a showpiece in your mansion, it's gonna go back to
give it back to the people, the culture,
god that needs it, or the people that need it. Yeah. So I think that if anything, I think Taweret would have been super proud of Abdullah.
Sure.
Maybe we don't get a Moon Knight season 2. Maybe we get a Scarlet Scarab.
That'd be a cool way to follow up the story.
And then Moon Knight's in it, and then we get a bit more of him as well. Yeah.
It's almost they go the Echo. I think we were predicting that for the Echo series, right?
Well, that's what they've said about Echo, is that it would very much continue Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Like that is the Hawkeye season 2, right? That what people would want, but.
I can already see the logo for Scarlet Scarab right now. Let's go.
Come on. I would be totally fine with that because she was again one of the highlights from this episode. So
big time.
Yeah. Sorry, you mentioned Echo when we're talking about Moon Knight. That just makes me think of one of my favorite Moon Knight runs where he has superheroes as identities in his head, and at the end of that run, Echo, who dies during his campaign of vengeance, becomes the sole remaining identity in his head. So
really,
doesn't he become Captain America that way?
Captain America, Wolverine, and Spider-Man.
Okay. I want to read that one.
Such a good storyline, dude.
You'll forget. Don't worry about it.
We'll see. All right. Well, listen. I think it's about time that we give our overall impressions of this finale, and we're also going to give our final score, which will be on a scale of 1 to 5 Jake Lockleys. And then I would love to know your overall score for this series and your rating, which will be on out of 5 scales of justice. Mike, as our lovely, lovely guest, I'm going to get you to go first. Again, your rating 1 to 5 Jake Lockleys for the episode and 1 to 5 scales of justice for the series.
Okay. So on the episode itself, lovely moments, as Nate's brought up over and over again. I really enjoyed all the lovely moments. It brought together, officially like cemented in Mark and Steve as being like, or Steven as being like, just they're working together. They're emotionally together, and I love that. So that was really, really great. The introduction of the new MCU's Scarlet Scarab was just badass, and like I wasn't, that was definitely, as Justin said, the fist bump part of the episode. So I really, really loved that. And there was some clunkiness and a bit of confusion in the beginning and near the end, but everything in between was pretty great. So it was kind of like a reverse shit sandwich where, you know what, I'm willing to forgive the sort of like sloppy intro and like the kind of biff the ending, but was really great altogether. I had some questions, and I don't want to bring up a huge debate, and this was a question I couldn't really fit in here and I didn't know where, but I didn't understand why we can see some gods and then we don't see other gods. Like we only saw Khonshu and Amit, and like, yeah, I don't know, it's probably a CG budget thing, but like realistically, like I just didn't understand why the other gods were there and they were ready to fight, but they just got blasted, and then they're you know, like, yeah.
They cut from that moment and cut away, and immediately I was just like, oh, budget.
Yeah, maybe Darcy's got an answer that makes more sense than me just being upset about it.
I mean, going back to our first introduction to the panel of gods that we saw judging Mark in Khonshu, Khonshu says they're too comfortable in the overvoid. The gods aren't on Earth at all. They just have their little telephone line to their avatars, basically.
Okay.
Whereas
Right.
Khonshu and Ahmet are physically on Earth trying to affect the things. So they have come from their other planes
so
to our existence.
they loosely explain that, so I'll accept that. That's a great answer. I appreciate that. Just one of those lines kind of goes over my head, and I'm like immediately like all fire, like what the hell? Where's all the other gods?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Like where was to wear it? She never showed up and didn't really. I don't know. She was just embodying. So I guess that's the way a temporary bond works.
She was sending a lifeline. She was like sending a lifeline.
Yeah, it's not like the full
because
commitment.
Because maybe she's moving
right?
to those dead. Exactly. Because she's not able to represent herself in the physical form like Khonshu and I've been able to do on this plane.
Yeah, she's still got a job to do, So she's still driving the boat, right? She's got to surf them waves. With all those things said, I think as a finale, it wrapped up. It was a little, maybe because we had so much speculation, a little predictable, but had a couple wow moments. And I'm gonna have to say, including the after credit scene, I'm sitting at a good 4 Jake Lockleys out of 5. The whole series is like fully, I'm on board. Loki's my favorite MCU show out of all of them, for my personal taste, and this one is probably on par with that. And I'm gonna have to say, like, I enjoyed it all, from the production to the acting, especially the acting, like those two sort of main stars, and for the heroes, and then as the villain as well. They were just great. The voice acting was great as well. I'm probably giving the whole show an easy 4.5, a 4.5 scales of judgment.
No, it's just justice. Yeah, you're good.
Scales of Justin.
I'm keeping that. Scales of Justin. Yeah.
That's what he wants. Darcy, how about yourself?
I don't know if it's come across throughout this whole podcast, but I'm a huge fan of Moon Knight. I have read, I think, all his ongoing series. So to finally see him get a really good story told on this screen, I loved it. For the episode, again, we've brought up some of the clunky parts, and again, me being the guy who rewatches stuff and picks up the smallest notes, I found it was a bit easier to put it together. But like you said, that middle, the action scenes in this thing were excellent. I loved the reveal of Scarlet Scarab, the resolution of Stephen and Mark's relationship. So many things were done so well as that reveal at the end of Jake Lockley, leaving me wanting more. Definitely an easy 4.5 out of 5 Jake Lockleys for me for the episode. And again, as a series as a whole, this was, again, I loved it. 4.8 out of 5 Scales of Justice. Marvel can do better, but they're going to have to try really hard in my book.
Justin, are you all for this episode?
I am all for this episode. I think after watching the finale twice, it's clear that after all the character work that the rest of the episodes did up to this finale, everything that happened felt earned and very like fulfilled. We got full balls off the walls, nuts action with spectacle. The lack of action throughout the series felt purposeful to give more weight to the focus of the characters of Mark and Steven. But this finale delivers, showing us, these two coming together, the way they move back and forth between Moon Knight and Mr. Knight. It just felt very stylish and, felt fun. Again, just earned over the course of the 6 episodes. Seeing Layla take up the mantle of the Scarlet Scarab was great. I think a lot of people on the internet were hoping this to be the case, and it was a sweet payoff to her character after spending so much time with her as well, and really seeing her come to be a hero. She's going to be a hero. Her future is bright in the MCU. Seeing kaiju style, as Nate mentioned, gods was very, very thrilling, and kind of the sort of spectacle that this series needed. And I'm glad that it was here and it wasn't like really heavy-handed.
That
throughout.
scene when they're in the background and you see Harrow coming over. Oh, both times I watched it, when I watched the episode, I just couldn't believe how amazing that scene was. I just was like, oh, that's badass. So great.
Yeah, like the gods were mirroring the avatars perfectly.
Yeah,
The
so
back
good.
and forth. I loved it.
Yeah, and it's obviously very clear that no one else can see that. Just those who are in the know, if you will.
Those who have been touched by the gods.
Exactly can see
yeah.
that. So it all makes sense. It all makes sense. Like, it's not MCU disaster level event that's actually happening. It's spiritually happening. Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So, but again, I think it was mentioned already. Many of these MCU finales can feel rushed. This finale does definitely feel like that. It's a little messy off the top, but however, I would argue though that in some ways this is one of the most successful finales of the MCU series. The finale closed out what it needed to in its first season. The pending threat that had been the focus of the series was dealt with. The relationship between Mark and Steven, most importantly, has been now unified as one. And while not everything was resolved, I think there's some exciting parts of the finale that really do get you thinking what is next, like gets you excited for what's next. And of course we talked about it, but the most exciting part is that Stingers being left with the idea that Jake Lockley is the third alternate, and Khonshu seems very much in control, and he kind of seems like he might be the ultimate bad guy in this whole situation. And he wanted Jake Lockley, not Layla, which I think is really, really interesting.
I think you did call out, Justin, at some point that he was after. Sorry, I want to give you a point there because I'm pretty sure you did actually.
Oh, thanks. I did say.
Call
I say,
that, yeah.
what if Khonshu wasn't out for Mark or Steven? He was out for this third alternate. And that is one of the things I did nail of anything. But
agreed.
But again, I just think that this stinger does set up what is the next adventure for Mark and Steven, more importantly than just Moon Knight, is discovering this third alternate and how to deal with that. And I think that's what it is. So there's clearly things that have been left unresolved purposely, and I think that we'll be getting an announcement for a season 2 sooner rather than later, because there is more story that that needs to be told here with this character. But yeah, I'm gonna give this episode a 4 out of 5 Jake Lockleys. Now, as for the series, I loved it. From its rich cultural influences to the sort of surreal, mind-bending reality, talking about spirituality and connection to gods and religion in some way, this had a lot going for it. Outstanding performances. Ethan Hawke was weird and creepy as the villain, and he does get his hands dirty in the finale. Finally, he does get starts doing some action. And again, I can't say enough about May Calamaway. Like, she's just flawless. Like, such a highlight. I'm very excited to see more of her in the MCU. And then fucking Oscar killed it. He did such a great job differentiating Mark, Steven, and Jake, playing those characters so different, and every moment had you guessing who, when did you see Jake Lockley? When did you see Mark? Yeah, and it was really nice that all of these personas just felt so different from each other. But I think the biggest reason why I like this series so much is that it feels so removed from the MCU, and that feels purposeful as a means to kind of build not just this world of Egyptian mythology in the MCU, but I think really more importantly, Moon Knight's character from the ground up. It feels like we know it's in the universe, but that's not part of the plot. That's not part of the story, like everything else that we get from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? So it has its own terms, and with a narrative that feels really like more about an internal struggle. This is sort of a new character to explore. With similar sort of facets of what we've already explored in the MCU. But I think you guys were mentioning it too, like Darcy, in the comics, writers and artists are taking different approaches to the character of Moon Knight as each iteration comes. And it feels like here in this series, the MCU did that. They looked back at those comics, they looked back at what they wanted, and they took the best parts and as Mike said, put it in a blender and took it out and applied it to different people. And I think that's what's really refreshing about the approach to Moon Knight is how they're really moving towards just trying to tell the story differently, so that a comic book fan like yourself, Darcy, could be guessing, like, what are they going to do? How is this going to tie in?
Well, it's
right?
something
so
we haven't
really
fully touched on too, and that what you're saying reminded me too. And we touched on it in the previous episodes, but as a whole, this whole series has really touched on that whole like abuse and trauma and mental health state. And I really wanted to throw that in here at the end, because that's something that it can be a fan, like anyone can be a fan of that, because it's such an emotional story with the backdrop of being a cool superhero story. And, like it's just such a great call out that I wanted to bring in.
And I love the idea of how, we were talking about it in the sense of, it could be overly clinical. You need to resolve your problems. You need to get over them. Mm-hmm. No, you need to accept them and become one with them. And that seems very representative in Mark and Steven's character and how they have to come together. And I that was a great call out, Darcy. So I really loved this series. A few missteps along the way, but you got to love a series that knows what it wants to say and commits to its themes and continues that throughout the series to a fulfilling and earned closure. And leaving you wanting more. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm very excited. So yeah, I loved it. I'm giving it a 4.5 out of 5 scales of justice.
For myself, I mean, you guys have already said a lot of it. I think overall I enjoyed this episode. Episode 5 was so nuanced and thought-provoking and deep that this finale, while it still had moments of that, it really had the freedom to become a fun, romping, action-packed CGI kaiju battle, right? And so, again, there were lovely moments, a lot of lovely moments, Justin.
Lovely.
Very lovely.
It
was so lovely. Lovely episode. And I had a lot of fun with it. I think it was definitely messy, and it didn't really blow me away with any of its resolutions. The way that the series has blown my mind in the past, I think, with maybe the exception of that fist pump moment of getting the surprise of Scarlet Scarab and seeing her in the costume. I still have so many questions, and I feel like they for me personally, as much as Justin, you might have just disagreed on this, I think they did fail to give me enough answers to leave me satisfied, in a satisfied place with the show. But the performances and the get hype moments kept me engaged the entire time. And the end credit sequence was so wicked and so dark. I can't wait to see these characters again in the MCU. And while this episode wasn't my favorite in the series, it certainly wasn't anywhere near its worst. So I'm giving this episode 4 out of 5 Jake Lockleys. As for the series, I think, the show was pretty consistently good with maybe a big dip in the middle, but brought it back. Like Mike, you were saying, the episode kind of felt like a reverse shit sandwich. I think the series kind of did too with episode 3, and then bringing us right back to that hype with episode 4. It does what these MCU shows have been doing since WandaVision, right? Taking these characters, getting people super excited about them, and so connected to them, even though they might be considered obscure from the comic books, or just characters that really haven't shone too brightly in the MCU movies. So I really dug that about it. Of course, it does continue the theme of what everyone's saying is the theme of Phase 4, which is trauma. But I think the show does so much for, Justin, like you said, cultural representation. But it also greatly expands, while it stays away from the MCU, it expands the MCU at the same time on the spiritual side. And so I think, let's also talk about the incredible music. Composer Hesham Nassi did an amazing job, and I love a good soundtrack. I mean, again, the pinnacle of television for me, and I'm going to mention twice in this final wrap-up here, is Lost. And Lost always had such great songs that I would literally create a playlist for, and I've looked and started downloading all the music from each episode of Moon Knight. So I really, really dug that. I think the performances, like we called out, Layla's character from May Calloway, a terrifying performance from Ethan Hawke, and Oscar Isaac better get an Emmy, or else I'm going to go all Jake Lockley on whoever decides that. The show, Mike is showing me there is actually a soundtrack available, so go download that on Apple Music or Spotify. The show had so many highs in its second act. I just don't think we needed 3 episodes to get to the twist, and I think it would have been really nice if that happened a little earlier in the show overall. I think it would have allowed us to get a finale that didn't feel rushed, and it could have given us a little more time to, a little more insight as to where these characters are going, as well as maybe bringing in Jake a little earlier to satiate my Amit level of greediness. And I feel like the if there's a GIF out there of Amit sucking up all the souls, that's me with this with these Marvel shows. I just want more
insatiable thirst.
Yeah, I'm just
I'm with you. I wanted it, but I understand why they didn't do it. Like it
Totally.
made sense, but I wanted it.
All in all, the series was fantastic. I enjoyed it week to week. The speculation, and again, the lost levels of clues left by the writers. Like, I'm even excited to go back and just kind of pick apart and find all the little details, all the little things that were in the fish tank that ended up being, in this finale. I'm giving Marvel's Moon Knight 4.5 out of 5 scales of justice. As Jake Lockley might say, este watch club ha terminado. Spanish for the watch club is over, I think. But before we wrap things up, Mike, tell people how they can keep up with your lovely face.
Yeah, you can follow my podcast. I'm Mike Smith, one word, on Instagram if you want to see my daily life. That's nothing special. I got a podcast called Dumpster Talk, and currently we're trying to bring that back, but my idiot co-host is down in Texas becoming a firefighter, doing military firefighter training, which I feel like that's going to lead to some great stories. So when he gets back, we'll be throwing that on all the different podcast streamers to find out how terrible or amazing that was. And
maybe he'll go AWOL in a fugue state.
Yeah, he may.
You never know.
He might just. I don't know. I don't know what his plan is there, but we tried to get together beforehand to find out his expectations. We weren't able to get together to do it because he had to take off. But we'll definitely do a recap when he gets back and find out how amazing that was. But just a big chit chat show. Usually ramble on for about an hour to 2 hours and tell a lot of stories, talk a lot of junk. Just pop culture, everything under the sun. It's called Dumpster Talk for a reason.
You're selling it so short, Mike. I'm telling you.
That's why I hire you as my hype man, Nate. You're always my hype man for everything I do.
Listen, it is so much. It is honestly, it's a lot of fun. I laugh in my car every time I listen to them chatting about just the most random stories. It's just like those stories that you hear from a buddy of yours where you're like, this can't be real, but it is, right? And it comes from these insane moments between the two of them, or when they've traveled to different parts of the world. Even I really like the Greece episode a lot. But yeah, and then I think we'll have the links for all that stuff in the show notes, so go subscribe. I think maybe, who knows, maybe you'll hear one of us gabbing on about nothing with them wearing a Dumpster Talk t-shirt
most definitely
in the future. By the way, if you want a Dumpster Talk t-shirt, maybe they'll make them in the future. Who knows? Darcy, is there anything you want to promote?
No, I mean, I'm usually popping up here now and then. I'm sure they'll hear my voice again for Obi-Wan, or potentially even recounting our journey to Star Wars Celebration at the end of the month. So I'm sure the lovelies will hear my voice again.
I'm super stoked for that. All right, well, that is it for this week's episode of Watch Club, and that's it for this Watch Club for Marvel's Moon Knight. That is it for this one. We hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, let me seamlessly hand over control to my personal deity, Justin, the Egyptian Jackal, to tell you how you can reach us.
Oh, well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com, or on Twitter at geekcentricyt, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. It'll be in the show notes.
I'm super glad you didn't have just a random different accent there just now, Justin. I would have gotten really freaked out. I would have gotten really scared.
You didn't want to go to New York cabbie?
Yeah, I'd have to tie our legs down to the bed. Keep in mind, we also have a ton of other episodes covering the latest and greatest shows out now, and movies, including our spoiler-filled and spoiler-free reviews for Ozark Season 4 Part 2. Also, I am stoked to let you know that you can listen to our spoiler-free review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We will have a spoiler-filled review for Multiverse of Madness coming up soon, and I'm just over the moon, if you will. Very proud of Kevin and Justin, who put out a very special episode where they had none other than director Sam Raimi and writer of Loki, Rick and Morty, and Multiverse of Madness, Michael Waldron, join us on the podcast. And they did such a wonderful interview where we learned some very interesting facts about their pastimes and what they like to do to relax. So you have to check out that interview. And then, of course, once you've watched the movie, you got to check out our reviews, both spoiler-free and filled. Plus, we have our weekly This Week in Geek episodes where we break down the latest trailers and news every single Wednesday. And lastly, well, I'm saddened to say that another Watch Club has ended. I'm delighted to say hello there. And to let you know that our next Watch Club for Obi-Wan Kenobi will be starting May 27th. So dust off your sand binoculars and watch a kid grow up. That sounded weird. Grow your facial hair out. Because Geekcentric will never stop to bring you the latest and greatest in geeky conversation. Mike and Darcy, I know, we are going long here, but that trailer for Obi-Wan, what did you think, really quick?
Well, I maybe have indulged too much and missed the fact that it came out, so I have not seen it yet.
Oh,
but I'm sure
okay.
It's good.
It's great. Mike, what about yourself?
I crushed it on my phone real quick before we recorded this in case you asked, and it just has such... I know everything Star Wars has Star Wars vibes, but this is like Star Wars vibes. Like, it is like take you back. I'm excited to see it. I'd say a 7 out of 10 Star Wars fan, so I enjoy it, but I don't get too deep, and that's going to be a real fun ride, I'm sure. I'll be listening to the Watch Club.
Very cool. Well, Mike, Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this Watch Club. And as we say for maybe one last time.
Latest Gators.